Hi, my friend. I thought X was coming out.
I
had some extra questions for him.
I think, yeah, he had changed his mind.
Well, thank you, Elon. It is such a treat and a special opportunity. Welcome to Possible. And while Greg was right.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, let's have a round of applause. Well, Greg was right. You really need no introduction. But in many ways today is your introduction to the advertising community, right?
Hello.
I think that's a round of applause.
Hello.
It's widely known that in the morning, you run SpaceX. In the afternoon, you head to Tesla. And in the evening, it's Twitter time. And many of you in this room know me, and you know I pride myself on my work ethic. But buddy, I met my match. Yeah. So we're here today to actually talk about your night job.
Great, sounds good.
But with Twitter, you've switched roles a little bit. Your other companies, you move from inventor now to reinventor. And when you're inventing something, it's all new. It's a surprise. We don't know what to expect. To reinventor, you challenge legacy. You challenge habits. With Twitter, many of us in this room, we might even go to bed with it in our pocket, on the night table. You challenge rituals. And every marketing executive in this room knows the difficulty of a new formula and the challenge of the delicate balance of a rebrand. And now that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make Twitter fun and interesting and informative. You know, the optimization for Twitter is maximize the unregretted user time. So, it's not like total number of users or anything. It's just total user minutes unregretted, and we actually hit an all-time high just yesterday. So it's going well. It's entertaining. So
I think entertaining is one way some people in the room describe Twitter today.
It is. Train wrecks arguably are entertaining.
Train wrecks happen sometime. They happen sometime if you're dedicated.
Like a train wreck.
You got to be dedicated to fixing them. But I think it's important to start with your vision of Twitter 2.0.
Yeah.
You yourself wrote, "I would like to die knowing that humanity has a bright future." It's actually been quite apparent in all your other businesses, from the early days of PayPal to Tesla to SpaceX to maybe you contemplating a new AI company.
Yeah.
But how does the better humanity for the future fit into your Twitter 2.0 vision?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously with the goal with Tesla is to advance sustainable energy. With SpaceX, we've got Starlink, which is providing internet to the least served in the world, and also hopefully getting humanity to Mars and back to the moon, so we have an exciting future. I mean, it's important to bear in mind, like sometimes people say, like, why waste any money on space? Like, don't we have enough problems on Earth? But you know, the thing is that, like, everyone needs a reason to be inspired. People need a reason to wake up in the morning. It can't just be about solving problems. They have to be things that really get you in the heart. I think I just killed the mic. Okay. And going to the moon last century inspired the whole world.
Yeah.
And hopefully going to Mars can do the same thing. So then, yeah, it's a great question. Why take some time away from that for Twitter? And Mike, you know, what I think is essentially, in order for civilization to advance, we've got to have freedom of speech. We've got to have a digital, yeah. So, thank you. It's a bigger deal than you'd think. And it's the kind of thing that you don't know what you're missing until you don't have it. And in a lot of places, people don't have it. And so it's important to bear in mind that the nature of free speech is, the acid test for it is, are people you don't like allowed to say things that you don't like? Otherwise, it's not free. It can't be just things that you like, because eventually somebody's not going to like what you say, and they're going to shut you up. And that's the essence of free speech, and that's why it's the First Amendment in this country. And if we lose that, I think we lose the bedrock of democracy.
So the bedrock of democracy, I would imagine, is important to everyone in this room. And you talk about the importance of freedom of speech. Yesterday, you posted a new policy that was titled Freedom of Speech, Not Freedom of Reach. That got my attention.
Yes.
Tell us about your new policy.
Right. So freedom of speech, not reach, is important in that, like if somebody has something hateful to say, it doesn't mean you should give them a megaphone. They should still be able to say it, but it needs to be not then pushed on people. So if, you can go like in Times Square in New York, and you can hear people say all kinds of crazy things. That's fine, but we don't broadcast that to Earth. So if somebody wants to say something that's technically legal, but is, by most definitions hateful, we're not going to promote that to people. We're not going to recommend hateful content to people. We'll put that behind a warning label saying this speech is probably something you don't want. So, and now this is something we have to be very careful that we roll out, and that it does not become, what is intended to be good does not become bad. So we want to be delicate with the freedom of reach, not speech, freedom of speech, not reach. So we're taking it easy, but it's just, if people are saying things that are, making you sad or encouraging negativity, then we're not going to amplify that, which Twitter has done in the past.
So how is this new policy different from the other platforms?
I don't know the other platforms. I don't use them, so.
That was not a softball question. I want to go on record.
I don't know. I mean, I think the interesting, honestly, this is true before the acquisition of Twitter. I just didn't find the other platforms compelling, to be, just objectively. So.
Okay. So let's get back to the new policy for a second, because, again, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of reach.
Yeah.
What does it mean to the advertisers in this room? Have you de-risked the opportunity or chance of their campaigns landing in these awful, hateful places?
Yeah, I think people may not be aware of this already, but we have adjacency controls in place that are really quite effective. So, we can you just literally turn on the adjacency control, and the ad will not appear next to anything that is remotely negative.
Has that gotten better since you arrived?
Yeah, we put a lot of effort into it. So I think there have been some mistakes that have been made where, in one case, somebody thought they were running a control. They first did a test campaign without the controls in place, and they got like 30% negativity. It's like that should never be done. You must put the controls in place because we have excess inventory on negativity. So, the ad engine will naturally say, "Oh, I've got lots of spots with the negativity, so I'm going to give you a very high negativity. You must put the adjacency controls in place. If you do put the adjacency controls in place, negativity is going to be almost nothing."
So this is a good early step of your impact since you got to Twitter, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's worth noting that, Apple has remained a major advertiser.
Yeah.
Disney has remained a major advertiser. They literally advertise children's shows on Twitter, and they wouldn't do that if it was filled with hate speech.
I want to get back to the labeling and this new policy. Who decides and how does it get decided that it's labeled? As what I think some people have talked about, if you've said it this way yourself, if it's awful but lawful, it's going to stay up, it just won't see sunlight, you won't amplify it. But who decides that labeling?
Well, we have a set of words. And so we open sourced the recommendation algorithm. We're also going to open source the words that are associated with the freedom of speech, not reach. And people can argue over the words. I think they're reasonably accurate. And like I said, it is working, or Disney would have pulled their ads a long time ago, and they haven't. So, yeah. But I think in order to really build trust, you have to have transparency. It can't be that here's this black box, something's happening in here, we won't tell you what it is, trust us. I think that's BS. If you want to trust something, you've got to know how it works. And so that's why we're open sourcing the algorithm. Now, open sourcing the algorithm is kind of embarrassing. People have found all sorts of things that were wrong and foolish and misguided with the algorithm. And we've actually fixed, I think at this point, over 100 issues with the algorithm. So it's actually been very helpful to open source it. And we're going to open source the entire thing. Basically, you should be able to recreate the probability of a tweet being recommended based on what we've open sourced. If you can't recreate it, then we haven't shown you everything. So it's really complete transparency, and I think that's the only path to trust. I don't think there's another path.
So trust is probably one of the top 2 or 3 words that every marketing executive in this room would say is table stakes for any company that they invest in, any company that they can move forward with. You just talked about transparency, open sourcing. Mm-hmm. I would say that that's the difference between those other platforms you either don't use or never heard of.
Yeah.
And open sourcing or transparency is, again, another one of those table stake requirements. But this labeling, this new policy, talking about if it's awful but not unlawful, does it apply to your tweets? Wow, listen to that.
Yes, it does, actually. It does.
It does.
Yeah. Moreover, my tweets are also subject to community notes.
Yeah.
So if I say something incorrect, our community notes function is actually very effective. It applies to advertisers too, FYI. And there have been a few cases where there's been ads that were not completely accurate, and community notes has corrected them. And they've corrected me, and they've corrected heads of state multiple times. So community notes is extremely effective.
I think that's an incredible acknowledgement of the progression of Twitter 2.0 and the importance of this new policy and protection for everyone, right? And you're talking about fully democratizing the platform, mm-hmm. which leads you to community notes because you're actually believing in the people
yeah.
who are able to often from the front lines gives their point of view that clarify what some people might say is bias.
Yeah, like I said, the important thing is that we're an open book. So you can literally see if there's some line of logic that gives me special privileges. Yeah. Literally everything. There's nothing that is hidden. Yeah, whatever. Obviously, people are not going to trust Twitter if there are different rules for me or others versus the rest of Twitter.
Yeah.
That's going to diminish trust. So everything that applies to the rest of Twitter must apply to me. Yep. I think this is going to. I think it's going to be extremely powerful, and I think it will result in Twitter being the most trusted place on the internet by far.
So
why would you trust anything else?
And let's talk about that. Why would you trust anyone else, especially if you, the most followed man on Twitter, you've gone from consumer of a product you loved to now the owner of a product that...
Yeah, it's like the hair club for men.
It might be a be careful what you ask for type of thing. But you know what? If you're held to the same level of accountability that everyone else is in the platform, there are some, this room think it's a second just to take a beat and talk about, you've talked about recently, you are maybe almost close to cash flow positive, right?
Yeah, we're like one, our nose is like just about quarter.
So maybe a quarter or two away from profitability. The people in this room are your accelerated path to profitability,
Yeah.
Elon.
Please advertise on Twitter, that would be much appreciated, thanks.
But there's a decent bit of skeptics in the room.
What?
Yeah. He's never heard of it. The guy works in space. He didn't hear what's going on.
Yeah, thanks.
There's people who cannot separate, or they're challenged by separating the man, his opinions, and the microphone that he now owns.
Yeah, but I mean, look, before the acquisition, I was the most interacted with account on Twitter. So it's not like, you know, it's actually all that different. So before I even announced the acquisition, I didn't have the most number of followers, but I had the highest number of interactions on the entire platform before an acquisition offer was even announced. And that's when there were like, you know, a fair number of people at Twitter who weren't exactly my best friends. So.
Well, you know, you open yourself up to this transparency. Your tweets are eligible for this labeling. You've actually unblocked all of your followers.
I deleted my block list.
Right, you delete your block list. You've also been told that you never want to lose your feedback loop, specifically your negative feedback loop.
Yes, thankfully Twitter will always provide you with a negative feedback loop.
I have to push you a little because there's a lot of folks in this room, they vote with their pocketbooks, or wallets, I should say. I like pocketbooks.
With their
nice ones.
Digital wallet.
But they can't cross that transom. They have a challenge with your points of view, your opinions, and still holding back from unlocking the full power of Twitter. What do you say to them in this room?
Well, I think, first of all, if you want to know what my opinions are, you should really, I guess, look at my Twitter. If you read and you know, take it with a grain of salt, because it's hard to convey tone with a tweet. So something may be sarcastic or a joke or something like that may come across as serious when it isn't. But a lot of the issue is negative amplification in the media.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, I recently had an interview with an organization called BBC, which you may have heard of.
Maybe.
And that was entertaining. But you know, the reporter was saying, claiming that there was all this, that he'd seen all this hate speech on Twitter. And I'd said, okay, well, can you give me a single example? And he couldn't. Right. Not even one. So then I'd say, like, okay, well, you know, if your personal experience on Twitter, that's how you should judge the platform, as opposed to what is represented in sort of the traditional media. And it's important to bear in mind, the traditional media is a competitor to Twitter. So they compete for your advertising dollars. They compete against Twitter for your advertising dollars. If it is possible for them to diminish Twitter and reduce the probability of advertising dollars going to Twitter, it's like, basically you shouldn't take a competitor's word for it. Yeah. As I mentioned, when we open sourced the recommendation algorithm, now there's still other elements of Twitter that haven't been open sourced but will be. The public found many errors in our recommendation platform that we fixed, and we'll keep doing that. What really matters is there both the reality and the perception of a platform that the public believes they can trust. And like I said, if you don't have anything that's not, any platform that does not have transparency, I wouldn't trust it with a damn.
So I think what we heard today is some really important and profound things. First of all, Elon has committed to being accessible to everyone for continual feedback. He's also opened up himself to also participate in the new transparency and safety rules that they posted yesterday. Just remember, right? freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of reach. And if freedom of speech, as he says, is the bedrock of this country, I'm not sure there's anyone in this room who could disagree with that. Could I get a round of applause for that?
Yeah.
But I want to be clear. The path here today wasn't without a lot of chatter, because this guy is here. There's always a lot of chatter. But I believe if this is a marketing conference for marketing executives that influence culture in this country, it is the responsibility of everybody in this room to offer a helping hand and to say, how can we help? How can we make it better? So I say we're open for solutions, and you got a man who's committed to try his best not to tweet after 3 a.m., but open to your feedback. And I'd like to really thank everyone who's spending their time here today.
Thank you. Thank you.